Marcus Chen looked at his watch as he drove down the quiet street. It was almost 8 in the evening. He had spent another long day at his law office in downtown Chicago. His black suit was still neat, his tie still perfectly in place. The leather seats of his Mercedes felt comfortable after 12 hours of work. He was tired but satisfied. Today he had won an important case for a family who had been treated unfairly by their landlord. Marcus loved his job. He had worked hard to become a civil rights lawyer. He wanted to help people who could not help themselves. The traffic light ahead turned yellow. Marcus slowed down and pressed his turn signal. The clicking sound filled the car as he prepared to turn left onto his street. He had driven this route home 1,000 times before. Suddenly, red and blue lights flashed in his rearview mirror. Marcus felt his heart beat faster. He had not been speeding. He had not run any red lights. What could this be about? He pulled his car to the side of the road and stopped. He put the car in park and placed both hands on the steering wheel where they could be seen. His father had taught him this when he was 16 years old. Always keep your hands visible, his father had said. Always stay calm. Always be polite. Marcus watched in his side mirror as a police officer got out of the patrol car. The officer was a large white man with a red face. He walked slowly toward Marcus's car with his hand near his belt. The officer knocked hard on the window. Marcus pressed the button to roll it down halfway. License and registration, the officer said. His voice was cold and unfriendly. His name tag read Thompson. Good evening, officer, Marcus said calmly. May I ask why you stopped me? You failed to signal, Officer Thompson said. Marcus felt confused. He knew he had used his turn signal. He always did. I did signal, officer. I'm certain of that. Are you arguing with me? Thompson's voice got louder. License and registration now. Marcus reached slowly toward his glove compartment. I'm reaching for my registration, he said clearly. He knew any sudden movement could be dangerous. He handed his license and registration to the officer. Thompson looked at them with suspicion in his eyes. Marcus Chen, Thompson read aloud. This your car? Yes, sir, it is. You got proof of that? This is an expensive car. Real expensive for this neighborhood. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. The registration shows my name, officer. The car is registered to me. Step out of the vehicle, Thompson ordered. May I ask why? Marcus knew his rights. He had spent years studying law. A police officer needed a reason to order someone out of their car. I said, get out of the car. Thompson's face was getting redder. Don't make me ask again. Marcus made a decision. He reached for his phone on the passenger seat. What are you doing? Thompson's hand moved to his gun. I'm recording this interaction, Marcus said calmly. I have the right to record. Put that phone down. Officer, I'm a lawyer. I know my rights. I'm allowed to record this stop. I'm not interfering with your work. Thompson's jaw tightened. He spoke into his radio. This is Thompson. I need backup at the corner of 5th and Maple. Suspicious individual refusing to cooperate. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This was escalating fast. He had done nothing wrong, but now backup was coming. This could turn dangerous very quickly. Officer, I am cooperating, Marcus said. I've given you my license and registration. I've answered your questions. I have the right to know why you're detaining me? You want to know why? Thompson leaned closer to the window. Because you're in a neighborhood you don't belong in, driving a car that's probably stolen, and you're giving me attitude. That's why Marcus kept his phone recording. Every word, every moment was being captured. He had seen too many cases where people had no proof of what had happened during a police stop. He would not make that mistake. Another patrol car pulled up behind Thompson's vehicle. A second officer got out. This one was younger, Hispanic, with Rodriguez on his name tag. He walked up to Thompson. What's the situation? Rodriguez asked. Failure to signal, suspicious behavior, refusing to exit the vehicle, Thompson said. Rodriguez looked at Marcus through the window. Marcus could see something in the younger officer's eyes. Was it doubt, concern? Did you see him fail to signal? Rodriguez asked Thompson quietly. That's what I said, didn't I? Thompson snapped. Rodriguez looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Marcus's car, at his suit, at the phone still recording in Marcus's hand. Sir, Rodriguez said to Marcus, can you please step out of the vehicle? It will make this easier. Marcus took a deep breath. He could refuse, but that might make things worse. He could cooperate, but he would not stop recording. I will step out, Marcus said. But I want to state clearly that I don't understand the legal reason for this order. I'm stepping out voluntarily to avoid escalation." He opened the door slowly and stepped onto the sidewalk. He kept his phone in his hand, camera pointing at the officers. Thompson immediately moved behind him. "Put your hands on the car." "Am I under arrest?" Marcus asked. "Just do it." Marcus placed one hand on the roof of his car. He kept the other hand with the phone extended to the side where it could still record. "Both hands," Thompson shouted. "I'm recording this," Marcus said firmly. "I'm not interfering with you. I'm documenting this stop." Thompson grabbed Marcus's wrist, trying to take the phone. Marcus pulled away instinctively. "He's resisting," Thompson yelled. "No, I'm not," Marcus said loudly for the recording. "I'm protecting my right to record. I'm not resisting arrest because I'm not under arrest." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Thompson, maybe we should just—" "Stay out of this, Rodriguez," Thompson cut him off. A car drove past slowly. The driver stared at the scene. Then another car. One of them slowed down even more. The driver had their phone out. They were recording too. Thompson noticed the attention. His face got even redder. He seemed to realize that this traffic stop was becoming a public scene. "I'm going to search your vehicle," Thompson announced. "I do not consent to a search," Marcus said clearly. "You have no probable cause." "I have not committed any crime." "I do not consent. We'll see about that," Thompson muttered. But he did not search the car. Too many eyes were watching now. Thompson walked back to his patrol car. He sat inside for several minutes. Marcus stood by his car, still recording, his heart pounding. Rodriguez stayed nearby, looking more uncomfortable by the minute. Finally, Thompson returned. He had a ticket in his hand. He shoved it toward Marcus. "Suspicious behavior," Thompson said. "Drive more carefully next time. And stay in your own neighborhood." Marcus took the ticket without saying a word. He looked at it. There was no signature, no specific violation code. This was not a real traffic ticket. This was harassment on paper. Thompson and Rodriguez got back in their patrol cars and drove away. Marcus stood on the sidewalk for a long moment. His hands were shaking now. His calm had been an act, a necessary performance to stay safe. He got back in his car and sat in the driver's seat. He looked at the ticket again. Then he looked at his phone. The recording was still going. He had everything. Every word, every moment. Then something clicked in his mind. The name Thompson. He knew that name. His law firm had been collecting complaints about police misconduct for months. They were building a case, a big case, about patterns of racist behavior in the police department, and Thompson's name was all over their files. Marcus started his car and drove the last 2 blocks to his house. His mind was already working. This was not just a bad traffic stop anymore. This was evidence. This was personal experience that could help dozens of other people. Officer Thompson had just made a very big mistake. He had harassed a civil rights lawyer who knew exactly what to do with the evidence. Marcus walked into his law office early the next morning. He had barely slept. His mind kept replaying the traffic stop over and over. Every word Thompson had said. Every moment of tension. The way Rodriguez had looked uncomfortable, but had done nothing to stop it. He went straight to the conference room where his partners were already having coffee. Minji Park looked up from her laptop. She had been with the firm for 5 years. She was brilliant and tough in court. James Mitchell sat across from her, reading through a stack of papers. He was the oldest partner with gray hair and 30 years of experience fighting for civil rights. "You look terrible," Minji said. "What happened?" Marcus set his phone on the table. "I need you both to watch something." He played the recording of his traffic stop. Minji and James watched in silence. Marcus could see their faces change as the video continued. Anger, recognition, determination. When it ended, James leaned back in his chair. "That's Thompson," he said quietly. "I know," Marcus replied. "I checked our files this morning. He's all over them." Minji pulled up a folder on her laptop. "Bradley Thompson, badge number 457, 42 years old. Been with the Chicago Police Department for 19 years. She scrolled through the documents. "We have 17 formal complaints against him. 17. And that's just the ones that were officially filed. Most people don't file complaints because they think nothing will happen." Marcus pulled up a chair. His anger from last night had turned into something else. Focus, purpose. "Tell me about the complaints," he said. James opened a thick file. 8 for excessive force, 6 for unlawful detention, 3 for harassment. All but 2 of the complainants were black or Latino. Most were young men, but not all. We have a college professor, a nurse, a small business owner. And the department did nothing? Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Worse than nothing, Minji said. They investigated and found most complaints were justified. But his supervisors kept overruling the findings. Thompson would get a warning, maybe a note in his file, and then back on the street. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. This was the system protecting its own. This was exactly why people did not trust the police. There's more, James said. He pulled out another file. Sarah did some research last month. You know how she is with computers. Sarah was their investigator. She could find information that others missed. She found Thompson's social media accounts, James continued. He uses fake names, but she traced them back to him. He's active in some online groups. Groups that share racist content. White supremacist stuff. James showed Marcus screenshots. Memes making fun of black people. Comments about how certain neighborhoods needed to be cleaned up. Jokes about police violence that were not really jokes at all. Marcus felt sick. This man had power over people's lives. He carried a gun and a badge. And he believed these things. Why hasn't anyone reported this? Marcus asked. We did, Minji said. Sarah sent all of it to the department's Internal Affairs Division 3 weeks ago. They said they would investigate. We haven't heard anything since. Marcus stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the city below. Somewhere out there, Thompson was still working. Still stopping people. Still treating them the way he had treated Marcus. We need to use this, Marcus said, turning back to his partners. My video. It proves everything we've been saying about Thompson. It does, James agreed. But Marcus, you know what this means. You become part of the case. You go from being the lawyer to being a witness. That changes things. Marcus had thought about this all night. Being a witness meant putting himself out there. It meant the defense would try to destroy his credibility. It meant police unions and their supporters would come after him. It meant death threats, probably. Definitely hate mail. But it also meant he could help people who had no voice. I know, Marcus said. I'm ready. Minji pulled up another file. We have a hearing next month. The Rodriguez case. Do you remember it? Marcus nodded. The Rodriguez family. Their son Danny was 22 years old. He had been having a mental health crisis. The family had called for help. Thompson had been one of the responding officers. Instead of helping, Thompson had beaten Danny badly. The young man had ended up in the hospital with broken ribs and a concussion. Thompson's report had said Danny was violent and dangerous, but witnesses said Danny had been sitting on the ground crying when Thompson arrived. Danny's case goes to court in 4 weeks, James said. We're arguing that Thompson used excessive force because of racial bias. If you testify about your experience, it establishes a pattern. The prosecution will fight it, Minji warned. They'll say you have a conflict of interest. They'll say you're biased because you're suing the department. Let them say it, Marcus replied. Everything I say will be true. Everything I experienced was real. Judge Okafor is fair. She'll let the jury hear the truth. Patricia Okafor was one of the few judges they trusted. She had a reputation for not backing down from powerful institutions. She had ruled against the police department before when the evidence demanded it. Over the next 3 days, Marcus and his team prepared. They pulled every complaint against Thompson they could find. They interviewed witnesses again. They documented every time Thompson's supervisors had ignored misconduct reports. Sarah came into the office on the 3rd day with a laptop. I found something, she said, her voice excited. She opened a file. Thompson has a group chat with 7 other officers. They use a private messaging app, but one of them had his phone seized in another case. I got access to the records through a contact at the district attorney's office. She showed them the messages. Marcus felt his stomach turn as he read them. The officers joked about their stops in black neighborhoods. They used racial slurs. They talked about making up charges to clear the streets of trash. Thompson was one of the most active participants. In one message he had written, stopped 3 tonight. All had attitude. All got tickets. They need to learn respect. When was that message sent? Marcus asked. Sarah checked. Last Tuesday, the day Thompson had stopped Marcus. He was bragging about it, Minji said quietly. He stopped you and then he bragged to his friends about putting you in your place. Marcus saved the file to his own computer. This was gold. This was evidence that would be hard for any jury to ignore. The next Monday, Marcus filed a motion with the court. He requested to testify in the Rodriguez case as a fact witness about his own experience with Thompson. He attached his video recording and the citation Thompson had given him. The police union's lawyers filed an objection within hours. They argued that Marcus was trying to poison the jury. They said his testimony was irrelevant. They claimed he had an agenda against all police officers. Judge Okafor scheduled a hearing to decide the issue. Marcus sat in her courtroom 2 days later, watching as the lawyers argued. The police union's attorney was a man named Richard Walsh. He was expensive and experienced. He stood before the judge with confidence. "Your Honor," Walsh said, "Mr. Chen is one of the attorneys representing the plaintiff in this case. Allowing him to testify about an unrelated traffic stop would be highly prejudicial. It would confuse the jury and waste the court's time." Marcus's partner, James, stood to respond. "Your Honor, Mr. Chen's experience is directly relevant. It demonstrates a pattern of behavior by Officer Thompson. Pattern evidence is admissible to show intent, motive, and common scheme." "But Mr. Chen has an obvious bias," Walsh argued. "He makes his living suing police departments. He has every reason to lie about his interaction with Officer Thompson." Judge Okafor looked at Walsh over her glasses. "Counselor, are you suggesting that being a civil rights attorney makes someone inherently dishonest?" Walsh hesitated. "Not inherently, Your Honor, but because that's what it sounds like you're suggesting." Judge Okafor continued. "Mr. Chen is an attorney in good standing. He has a video recording of the incident. Unless you're alleging that he fabricated that video, I'm not sure what you're arguing." Walsh tried again. "Your Honor, the video shows a routine traffic stop. Mr. Chen was not arrested. He was not harmed. He received a citation and was allowed to leave. This is not comparable to the Rodriguez incident." James stood again. "Your Honor, may I approach?" Judge Okafor nodded. James handed her a document. "This is the citation Officer Thompson gave Mr. Chen," James explained. "You'll notice it has no specific violation code. It says suspicious behavior, which is not actually a traffic violation. The citation is legally meaningless. It was pure harassment." Judge Okafor studied the document. She looked up at Walsh. "Do you have an explanation for why your client issued a citation with no legal basis?" Walsh looked uncomfortable. "I would need to consult with Officer Thompson about the specific—" "I'll make this simple," Judge Okafor interrupted. "I'm going to allow Mr. Chen's testimony. The jury can decide how much weight to give it. But evidence of pattern and practice is relevant in this case, and Mr. Chen's experience appears to be probative of Officer Thompson's attitudes and behavior." Walsh tried to object, but Judge Okafor held up her hand. "My ruling stands. We'll proceed to trial as scheduled. Mr. Chen will be allowed to testify about his traffic stop. The defense may cross-examine him like any other witness." Marcus felt relief wash over him. This was happening. He was going to tell his story in court. And maybe, just maybe, it would help Danny Rodriguez get justice. As they left the courtroom, Minji touched Marcus's arm. "You know this is going to get ugly," she said. "I know," Marcus replied. "The police union will come after you. The media will pick this up. You'll probably get threats." "I know," Marcus said again. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Marcus thought about Thompson's face at his car window. He thought about the 17 complaints that had been ignored. He thought about Danny Rodriguez in the hospital. He thought about every person who had been mistreated and had no way to fight back. "I'm sure," he said. "Let's get ready for trial." The courtroom was packed. Marcus had never seen so many people for a civil rights case. Every seat was filled. People stood in the back. News cameras lined the hallway outside because cameras were not allowed inside. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table with his partners. Across the aisle, Officer Thompson sat with his team of lawyers. Thompson wore his dress uniform. His medals and ribbons were perfectly arranged. He looked calm and confident. The Rodriguez family sat in the front row behind Marcus. Danny's mother kept wiping tears from her eyes. His father held her hand tightly. Danny himself was not there. He was still too traumatized to come to court. Judge Okafor entered and everyone stood. She took her seat and looked at the crowded room. "This is a trial, not a show," she said firmly. "I will have order in my courtroom. Anyone who disrupts these proceedings will be removed. Is that clear?" Everyone nodded. Good, Mr. Mitchell, call your first witness. James stood up. The plaintiff calls Marcus Chen. Marcus walked to the witness stand. He placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. He sat down and looked at the jury. 12 people would decide this case. 7 women, 5 men. Different ages, different backgrounds. They watched him with curious eyes. James approached the witness stand. Please state your name and occupation for the record. My name is Marcus Chen. I'm a civil rights attorney here in Chicago. How long have you been practicing law? 8 years. And what kind of cases do you handle? I represent people whose civil rights have been violated. Police misconduct, discrimination, wrongful arrest. Cases like that. James walked to his table and picked up a document. Mr. Chen, on the evening of October 15th, were you stopped by a police officer? Yes, I was. Can you tell the jury what happened? Marcus took a breath. He had practiced this testimony many times, but sitting here in front of all these people with Thompson staring at him, it felt different. I was driving home from work, Marcus began. It was about 8 in the evening. I used my turn signal to turn left onto my street. Suddenly, police lights appeared behind me. I pulled over. What happened next? An officer approached my car. His name tag said Thompson. Marcus gestured toward the defense table. That's him sitting right there. The jury looked at Thompson. Thompson's face showed no emotion. Officer Thompson told me to give him my license and registration. He said I had failed to use my turn signal. Had you used your turn signal? Yes, I had. I always use my turn signal. What happened after you gave him your documents? Marcus continued his story. He explained how Thompson had questioned whether the car was stolen, how he had ordered Marcus out of the vehicle, how he had called for backup when Marcus started recording. I was scared, Marcus admitted. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, but I also knew that didn't always matter. I've seen too many cases where traffic stops turned deadly. James pulled out a remote control. Your Honor, with the court's permission, I'd like to play the video Mr. Chen recorded. Proceed, Judge Okafor said. The lights dimmed. A screen lowered from the ceiling. The video began to play. The courtroom was silent. Everyone watched as Thompson's voice came through the speakers. This is an expensive car. Real expensive for this neighborhood. Some jury members shifted in their seats. The video continued. Thompson ordering Marcus out of the car. Thompson calling for backup. Thompson trying to grab Marcus's phone. When it ended, the lights came back on. Marcus could see that some jury members looked disturbed. Mr. Chen, James said, at any point in that video were you aggressive toward Officer Thompson? No, I was not. Did you raise your voice? No. Did you make any threatening movements? No, I kept my hands visible. I spoke calmly. I tried to de-escalate the situation. What happened at the end of the stop? Officer Thompson gave me a citation for suspicious behavior. James showed the jury the citation. This is the actual citation. Can you explain what's wrong with it? There's no specific violation code, Marcus explained. Suspicious behavior is not a traffic violation under Illinois law. This citation has no legal basis. It's not actually a ticket for anything real. Why would Officer Thompson give you a meaningless citation? Objection, Walsh called out. Speculation. I'll rephrase, James said. Mr. Chen, in your professional opinion, based on your years of experience with police misconduct cases, why would an officer issue a baseless citation? It's a form of harassment, a way to punish someone without actually arresting them. It creates a record of a police stop. Some people don't realize the citation is meaningless and they pay it anyway. James walked back to his table. He picked up a thick file. Mr. Chen, as part of your work, have you investigated Officer Thompson before this incident? Yes, my firm has been building a civil rights case against the police department. Officer Thompson's name appears in our investigation. How many complaints have been filed against Officer Thompson? 17 formal complaints in 5 years. The jury members looked at each other. 17 complaints seemed like a lot. What were these complaints for? 8 for excessive force, 6 for unlawful detention, 3 for harassment. Were these complaints investigated? Yes, the police department's internal affairs division investigated most of them. Many were found to be justified. What does justified mean? It means the investigators determined that the complaint had merit. That Officer Thompson did what he was accused of doing. What happened to Officer Thompson after these justified complaints? Nothing significant. He received warnings. Notes were put in his file. But he faced no real discipline. Walsh stood up. Objection, Your Honor. This is turning into a trial of Officer Thompson's entire career. The jury is here to decide the Rodriguez case, not every complaint ever filed. Judge Okafor looked at James. Mr. Mitchell, where are you going with this? Your Honor, we're establishing a pattern. Mr. Chen's experience was not unique. Officer Thompson has a documented history of treating people, particularly people of color, with excessive aggression. This goes to his state of mind when he encountered Danny Rodriguez. I'll allow it, Judge Okafor said. But move along, counselor. James turned back to Marcus. Did your investigation uncover anything else about Officer Thompson? Yes, our investigator found his social media activity. He participates in online groups that share racist content. Objection. Walsh was on his feet. This is highly prejudicial and irrelevant. Your Honor, James said calmly, we have evidence of Officer Thompson sharing racist memes and making racist comments online. This is directly relevant to whether racial bias motivated his actions. Judge Okafor thought for a moment. I'll allow it. The jury can decide how much weight to give it. James showed the jury screenshots of Thompson's posts, images that mocked black people, comments about cleaning up certain neighborhoods, jokes about police violence. Marcus watched the jury's faces. Some looked shocked. Some looked disgusted. One older woman shook her head slowly. Mr. Chen, James said, based on your personal experience and your professional investigation, do you have an opinion about why Officer Thompson stopped you that night? Yes. I believe he stopped me because I'm a black man driving an expensive car. He assumed I didn't belong there. He assumed the car must be stolen. His actions were based on racial stereotypes, not on any actual violation of law. Thank you, Mr. Chen. No further questions. Walsh stood up for cross-examination. He buttoned his suit jacket and approached the witness stand with a confident smile. Mr. Chen, you said you're a civil rights attorney, correct? That's correct. And you make your living by suing police departments? I make my living by representing people whose rights have been violated. But police departments are often the defendants in your cases, right? Often, yes. So you have a financial incentive to portray police officers in a negative light? Marcus met Walsh's eyes. I have an incentive to tell the truth. I don't get paid if I lose cases. I only win cases when the evidence shows that rights were actually violated. Isn't it convenient that you just happened to record your traffic stop with Officer Thompson? I record all my interactions with police. Many people do now. It's legal and it protects everyone involved. Or it's because you were looking for an excuse to sue another police officer. I recorded it because I was scared, because I knew the situation could turn dangerous, because I've seen too many people hurt or killed during traffic stops. Walsh picked up the citation. You said this citation has no legal basis. But you received it and you drove away. You weren't arrested. You weren't harmed. You went home safely. That's a successful traffic stop, isn't it? Being harassed and receiving an illegal citation is not successful. Being treated like a criminal when you've done nothing wrong is not successful. But you admit you weren't harmed. Physical harm isn't the only kind of harm. Being violated, being disrespected, being treated as less than human because of your race, that's harm too. Walsh smiled like he had caught Marcus in something. So you think Officer Thompson stopped you because of your race? Yes, I do. But you can't prove that, can you? You can't read his mind. I can look at the evidence. I can look at his history. I can look at his social media posts where he expresses racist views. I can look at the 17 complaints against him, most from people of color. And I can add my own experience. That's enough to draw a reasonable conclusion. Or maybe, Walsh said, you're just an activist lawyer who sees racism everywhere and who wants to destroy the career of a dedicated police officer. Objection. James stood up. Argumentative and insulting. Sustained, Judge Okafor said. Mr. Walsh, ask questions, don't make speeches. Walsh changed tactics. Mr. Chen, you said you stayed calm during the traffic stop, but you also refused to get out of your car when Officer Thompson ordered you to, correct? I asked why he was ordering me out. That's my right. But you refused to obey a lawful order? It wasn't a lawful order. He had no legal reason to order me out of the car. Are you a better judge of what's lawful than a police officer with 19 years of experience? Marcus leaned forward slightly. In this case, yes. Officer Thompson violated my Fourth Amendment rights. He conducted an unlawful detention. He had no probable cause to stop me, and no reasonable suspicion to extend the stop. This is basic constitutional law. Walsh's smile faded. He asked a few more questions, but Marcus had an answer for everything. Walsh couldn't shake him. Finally, Walsh said, "No further questions." Marcus stepped down from the witness stand. He walked back to his table. His shirt was damp with sweat under his suit jacket, but he had done it. He had told the truth. Judge Okafor looked at the clock. "We'll take a 15-minute recess." The courtroom erupted in conversation. Marcus sat down between his partners. "You did great," Minji whispered. Marcus nodded, but he wasn't thinking about his testimony anymore. He was thinking about what came next. Thompson would take the stand. The jury would hear his side, and Marcus knew that many juries, when faced with a choice between believing a police officer or believing a civilian, chose the officer. But this time, there was video. There were text messages. There were 17 complaints. This time, the truth had evidence behind it. Marcus looked across the aisle. Thompson was staring at him with cold, hard eyes. There was hate in that stare. Pure hate. Marcus didn't look away. He held Thompson's gaze until the officer finally turned away. The fight was just beginning. After the recess, Walsh stood up. "The defense calls Officer Bradley Thompson." Thompson walked to the witness stand. His uniform was perfect. His boots were polished. He raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth. Then he sat down and looked at the jury with a slight smile. Walsh began with easy questions. "Officer Thompson, how long have you served with the Chicago Police Department?" 19 years, Thompson said. His voice was steady and confident. "And what is your current position?" "I'm a patrol officer in the 5th District. Have you received any commendations during your career?" "Yes, sir. I've received the Police Medal for Valor, 3 honorable mentions, and 2 Superintendent's Awards of Merit." Walsh made sure the jury heard every award. He was building Thompson's image as a hero, a dedicated officer who risked his life to protect the community. "Officer Thompson, why did you become a police officer?" Thompson looked at the jury. "I wanted to serve my community. My father was a police officer. I grew up respecting the badge and what it stands for. I wanted to make a difference, to keep people safe. And in 19 years, you've made many traffic stops, correct?" "Thousands. It's part of the job." "Do you remember every traffic stop you've ever made?" "Of course not. That would be impossible." "Do you remember stopping Marcus Chen on October 15th? "I do now, yes." After all this started. "Tell the jury what happened that night." Thompson adjusted himself in his seat. "I was on patrol in my assigned area. I observed a vehicle fail to signal before making a turn. That's a traffic violation, so I initiated a stop." "What happened when you approached the vehicle?" "The driver seemed nervous. He was argumentative when I told him why I stopped him. That raised my suspicions." "Why would that raise suspicions?" "In my experience, people who have nothing to hide don't argue about a simple traffic stop. They accept the ticket and move on. When someone gets defensive, it often means there's something else going on." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Thompson was twisting everything. "What happened next?" Walsh asked. "The driver pulled out his phone and started recording me. He refused to comply with my instructions. I asked him to step out of the vehicle, which is within my authority during a traffic stop, but he refused." "Did you feel threatened?" "Yes, his behavior was erratic and confrontational. I didn't know if he had weapons in the vehicle. I called for backup because the situation was escalating. Officer Rodriguez arrived as backup." "What did you observe about the situation?" "The driver eventually complied and got out of the vehicle. I issued him a citation and allowed him to leave. It was a routine stop that ended peacefully." Walsh nodded like Thompson had just explained something perfectly reasonable. "Officer Thompson, Mr. Chen testified that you made comments about his car being expensive. Do you remember saying that?" "I may have asked about the vehicle registration. It's standard procedure to verify ownership. Did you stop him because of his race?" "Absolutely not. I stopped him because he violated a traffic law. I don't care what color someone is. I treat everyone equally." "What about these complaints that Mr. Chen mentioned?" 17 complaints in 5 years. Thompson shook his head sadly. "That's the reality of modern policing. People don't like getting tickets or being arrested, so they file complaints. Most of those complaints were found to be without merit. But Mr. Chen said many were found to be justified. If by justified he means the department recommended counseling or training, then yes. But I was never suspended. I was never seriously disciplined. That should tell you something about the validity of those complaints. Walsh looked satisfied. Officer Thompson, are you a racist? No, sir. I've dedicated my life to serving all people. My partner for 5 years was black. Many of my friends are people of color. The idea that I'm racist is offensive and completely false. What about these social media posts Mr. Chen mentioned? Thompson looked directly at the jury. I use social media like everyone else. Sometimes I share things without thinking carefully about them. Sometimes I laugh at jokes that might not be appropriate. But sharing a meme doesn't make someone a racist. It's just the internet. Thank you, Officer Thompson. Walsh sat down. Judge Okafor looked at Marcus's table. Cross-examination? Minji Park stood up. Marcus and James had decided she should cross-examine Thompson. She was brilliant at breaking down hostile witnesses. Minji walked toward Thompson slowly. She carried a folder in her hands. Officer Thompson, you said you stopped Mr. Chen for failing to signal, correct? That's correct. You're certain he didn't signal? Yes. How certain? Very certain. That's why I stopped him. Minji opened her folder. Your patrol car has a dashboard camera, doesn't it? Yes. That camera records traffic stops? Yes. So there should be footage of Mr. Chen failing to signal? Thompson hesitated for just a moment. If the camera was working properly, yes. Minji smiled slightly. Your Honor, I'd like to play the dash cam footage from Officer Thompson's patrol car. Walsh jumped up. Your Honor, we weren't notified that plaintiff's counsel had this footage. We obtained it through discovery 3 days ago, Minji said calmly. We sent notice to defense counsel immediately. I'll allow it, Judge Okafor said. The lights dimmed again. The screen showed footage from Thompson's patrol car. The timestamp showed October 15th, 7:53 in the evening. The video showed Marcus's car ahead. Then, clear as day, his turn signal began blinking. Left, left, left. The bright orange light flashed at least 5 times before Marcus made his turn. Thompson's face went red. The video continued showing Thompson pulling Marcus over. The lights came back on. Officer Thompson, Minji said quietly, that video clearly shows Mr. Chen using his turn signal. Do you still maintain that he failed to signal? Thompson's jaw worked. From my angle, I didn't see it. Your angle was directly behind him. The turn signal is designed to be visible from behind a vehicle. Are you saying you can't see turn signals from your patrol car? I'm saying that in the moment I believed I saw a violation. Or you're saying you lied in your report? Objection, Walsh shouted. Withdrawn, Minji said smoothly. She moved on. Officer Thompson, you said Mr. Chen seemed nervous and argumentative. Let's watch his behavior. She played Marcus's recording again. The jury watched Marcus speak calmly and respectfully throughout the stop. Does that look nervous and argumentative to you? Minji asked. He was refusing to comply with my orders. He was asking questions. That's not the same as refusing to comply. Mr. Chen is a lawyer. He knows his rights. Does knowing your rights make you suspicious? It can, depending on the circumstances. So if a black man knows his rights and politely asserts them, that's suspicious to you? I didn't say that. But that's what happened here, isn't it? Mr. Chen knew he hadn't violated any law. He knew you had no right to order him out of his car without cause, and that made you angry. I wasn't angry. Really? Minji pulled out another document. You called for backup. Why? The situation was escalating. What was escalating? Mr. Chen was sitting in his car with his hands visible, speaking politely. What about that situation required backup? Thompson didn't answer immediately. Minji continued. The truth is, Officer Thompson, you were angry that a black man in an expensive car dared to question your authority. Isn't that right? No. You told Mr. Chen his car was too expensive for the neighborhood. What did you mean by that? I was verifying ownership. By implying the car was stolen, I was doing my job. Minji pulled out more papers. Officer Thompson, I have here records of 17 complaints filed against you. Let's talk about them. For the next hour, Minji went through complaint after complaint. Each one followed the same pattern. Thompson stopping someone, usually a person of color, for minor or made-up violations. Thompson treating them aggressively. People being humiliated, searched without cause, detained without reason. In the complaint filed by Dr. Jennifer Washington, she states that you pulled her over and asked to search her car for drugs. Dr. Washington is a professor at Northwestern University. She was driving home from teaching a class. Why did you assume she had drugs? I didn't assume anything. I asked for consent to search, which is legal. Dr. Washington is black. Is that relevant? No. Because your records show that 87% of your consent searches are of black or Latino drivers, even though they make up only 40% of drivers in your district. Can you explain that disparity? I search based on suspicious behavior, not race. Yet somehow black and Latino people seem to behave suspiciously around you much more often than white people. Objection, Walsh said weakly. Argumentative. Sustained, Judge Okafor said. But the jury had heard the question. Minji picked up a new document. Officer Thompson, do you recognize these text messages? She showed him printouts. Thompson's face went pale. These are messages you sent to other officers in a private group chat. Would you like me to read some of them to the jury? Those were taken out of context, Thompson said quickly. Let's see. This message from September 20th. You wrote, and I quote, stopped 3 in the hood tonight. All had attitude. All got tickets. They need to learn respect. What did you mean by the hood? It's just slang for a high crime area. And what did you mean by they need to learn respect? People need to respect police officers, or you'll give them tickets even if they haven't violated any laws. That's not what I meant. Minji showed the jury another message. Here's one from October 3rd. You shared a meme showing a police officer pointing a gun with text that says, comply or die. You added laughing emojis. Do you think threats of death are funny? It was a joke. A joke about killing people? It's just dark humor. Cops use that kind of humor to deal with stress. Do you think Danny Rodriguez's family finds that humor funny? Objection. Walsh stood up. That's inflammatory and irrelevant. Your Honor, this goes to Officer Thompson's state of mind and his attitude toward the people he's sworn to protect, Minji argued. I'll allow it, Judge Okafor said. Minji pulled out more messages. Each one was worse than the last. Racial slurs. Jokes about planting evidence. Comments about how certain neighborhoods needed to be cleaned up. Officer Thompson, you testified that you're not racist. But these messages show you using racial slurs, sharing racist memes and expressing contempt for people of color. Were you lying before or are you lying now? Thompson's face was deep red. Sweat appeared on his forehead. Those messages were private. They don't reflect my professional conduct. They reflect your beliefs. And beliefs drive behavior, don't they? I treat everyone fairly on the job. Is that why the police department's own internal affairs division found merit in 12 of the 17 complaints against you? Those investigations were biased. Biased how? These were your own colleagues investigating you. The department has become too politically correct. They side with complainants even when officers are doing their jobs correctly. Minji let that statement hang in the air. Thompson had just admitted he thought the problem wasn't his behavior. It was that people complained about it. Officer Thompson, on the night you stopped Mr. Chen, you issued him a citation for suspicious behavior. Can you show me where in the Illinois Traffic Code suspicious behavior is listed as a violation? I don't have the code memorized. That's convenient. Because suspicious behavior is not a traffic violation. You wrote a citation that has no legal basis. Why? Thompson didn't answer. Was it to punish Mr. Chen for standing up to you? For knowing his rights? For being a black man who didn't bow down to your authority? No, then why? I thought it was warranted at the time. Based on what? Based on the fact that he exercised his constitutional rights? Objection, Walsh said. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained. Move on, Miss Park. Minji looked at Thompson for a long moment. Then she looked at the jury. Officer Thompson, you wear that uniform and those medals with pride, don't you? Yes. You think you're a good cop? I am a good cop. But good cops don't lie in reports. Good cops don't harass people based on race. Good cops don't share racist memes and use racial slurs. Good cops don't have 17 complaints for misconduct. Objection. Walsh was on his feet. Withdrawn, Minji said. I have no further questions for this witness. She walked back to her table. Marcus saw that several jury members were looking at Thompson with distrust now. The mask had cracked. They had seen who he really was. Thompson left the witness stand and returned to his seat. He wouldn't look at anyone. His confidence was gone. Judge Okafor looked at the clock. We'll break for today. The trial will resume tomorrow morning at 9. As people filed out of the courtroom, Marcus felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Danny Rodriguez's father. Thank you. the older man said quietly. Thank you for making them see the truth. Marcus nodded. But he knew the trial wasn't over. Tomorrow they would hear from more witnesses. Then the jury would decide. For now, though, they had landed real blows. Thompson's credibility was damaged. His racism was exposed. The jury had seen evidence that couldn't be denied. Marcus gathered his papers and walked toward the exit. Minji and James were already talking about tomorrow's strategy. But Marcus was thinking about something else. He was thinking about all the people Thompson had hurt who never got their day in court. All the complaints that were ignored. All the victims who had no lawyer, no video, no way to prove what happened to them. This case was bigger than Danny Rodriguez. It was bigger than Marcus's traffic. Stop. This was about a system that protected bad cops and punished people for demanding their rights, and that system was finally being held accountable. Marcus arrived at his office early the next morning. The sun was barely up, but he couldn't sleep. His mind kept replaying Thompson's testimony and Minji's cross-examination. They had damaged Thompson's credibility, but trials could be unpredictable. He was making coffee when his phone rang. It was James. Marcus, you need to get to the office right now. Something's happened. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat in the conference room with his partners. A man he didn't recognize sat across from them. He was young, maybe 30, wearing a police uniform. His name tag read Rodriguez. This is Officer Carlos Rodriguez, James said. He worked backup on your traffic stop with Thompson. Marcus remembered him. The younger officer who had looked uncomfortable during the stop. The one who had seemed uncertain about Thompson's behavior. I need to talk to you, Rodriguez said. His hands were shaking slightly. About Thompson. About what I've seen. Why now? Minji asked carefully. Rodriguez took a deep breath. Because I can't stay quiet anymore. I watched the trial yesterday. I saw Thompson lie on the stand. I've been carrying this guilt for 2 years and I'm done. I'm done being part of the problem. You understand what you're doing? Marcus asked. Coming forward like this will end your career. Other officers will see you as a traitor. You'll face retaliation. I know, Rodriguez said quietly. But I can't look at myself in the mirror anymore. I've watched Thompson hurt people for 2 years. I've stayed silent because I was scared. But silence makes me part of it. James leaned forward. Tell us what you know. For the next hour, Rodriguez talked. He described incident after incident. Times when Thompson had planted drugs in people's cars. Times when Thompson had lied in reports to justify arrests. Times when Thompson had beaten suspects who were already restrained. Why didn't you report this before? Minji asked. I tried once. I talked to my sergeant about Thompson's behavior. The next week, I got assigned to the worst shifts. My evaluations suddenly became negative. Other officers stopped talking to me. The message was clear, keep your mouth shut or pay the price. That's retaliation, Marcus said. That's illegal. Maybe, Rodriguez said. But it's how the system works. Good cops who report bad cops get punished, so most people just look the other way. Marcus thought about this. He had known police departments protected bad officers, but hearing it from someone inside made it real in a different way. Are you willing to testify? James asked. Yes, I'll testify. I'll tell the court everything I've seen. The police union will destroy you, Minji warned. They have expensive lawyers and unlimited resources. They'll dig up everything in your past. They'll make you look like a liar, a troublemaker, someone with an agenda. Rodriguez nodded. I know, but at least I'll be able to sleep at night. 3 hours later, Rodriguez sat on the witness stand. The courtroom was even more crowded than the day before. Word had spread that a police officer was testifying against another officer. That almost never happened. James began the questioning. Officer Rodriguez, how long have you been with the Chicago Police Department? 6 years. Do you know Officer Bradley Thompson? Yes, we've worked the same district for 2 years. I was his backup on several calls. Were you backup on the traffic stop involving Marcus Chen? Yes, I was. Tell the jury what you observed that night, Rodriguez spoke clearly. I arrived after Officer Thompson had already stopped Mr. Chen. Thompson was agitated. He told me the driver was being difficult and suspicious. But when I looked at the situation, I didn't see anything concerning. Mr. Chen was sitting in his car, speaking politely, recording on his phone. Did Mr. Chen appear threatening to you? No, he appeared scared, actually. But he was handling it well. Did you think the traffic stop was justified? Rodriguez hesitated. At the time, I trusted Thompson's judgment. But later, when I saw the dashcam footage, I realized Mr. Chen had used his turn signal. Thompson lied about the reason for the stop. Did that surprise you? Not really. I'd seen Thompson lie in reports before. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Judge Okafor banged her gavel. Order, James continued. You said you'd seen Officer Thompson lie in reports before. Can you give examples? Objection, Walsh said. This is beyond the scope of this case. Your Honor, Officer Rodriguez's testimony goes to pattern and practice, which is central to our case, James argued. I'll allow it, Judge Okafor said. Rodriguez told story after story. A stop where Thompson claimed to smell marijuana, but Rodriguez knew the car was clean. An arrest where Thompson said the suspect fought back when Rodriguez had seen the suspect was cooperative. A search where Thompson claimed to find drugs that Rodriguez was certain Thompson had planted. Why didn't you report these incidents? James asked. Because I knew what would happen if I did. Officers who report misconduct face retaliation. Bad evaluations. Bad assignments. Social isolation. Sometimes worse. What do you mean by worse? I've heard stories of officers being left without backup in dangerous situations, having evidence go missing in their cases, being accused of violations they didn't commit. The system protects itself. You're taking a risk by testifying today, aren't you? Yes, my career is probably over, but I'd rather have a clear conscience than a career built on silence. James showed Rodriguez the text messages between Thompson and other officers. Have you seen Officer Thompson share messages like these? Yes, he's part of a group chat with about 7 other officers. They share racist memes, joke about hurting suspects, talk about their stops like they're hunting animals. Did you participate in these conversations? Rodriguez looked down. Sometimes. At first, I laughed along because I wanted to fit in, but it made me sick. These messages show what Thompson really thinks about the people he's supposed to protect. Thank you, Officer Rodriguez. James sat down. Walsh approached the witness stand. His face was red with anger. Officer Rodriguez, you said your career is probably over because of this testimony. Sounds like you have a grudge against the department. I don't have a grudge. I'm just telling the truth. Or you're a disgruntled officer looking for attention, trying to make yourself look like a hero by throwing a fellow officer under the bus. I'm not a hero. I'm someone who stayed quiet too long and is trying to make it right. You admit you participated in these group chats with Officer Thompson. You laughed at the jokes. Doesn't that make you just as guilty? Yes, Rodriguez said simply. I am guilty of staying silent. I'm guilty of not speaking up sooner. That's why I'm here now. Walsh wasn't expecting that answer. He changed tactics. How many times have you reported Officer Thompson's behavior to supervisors? Once. After that, I faced retaliation, so I stopped. So just once? And you're basing all these accusations on one conversation with a supervisor? I'm basing these accusations on 2 years of watching Thompson abuse his authority. On dozens of incidents where I saw him lie, plant evidence, and hurt people. But you have no documentation of these incidents, do you? No, because documenting them would have been proof that I knew and did nothing. Convenient. So we're supposed to just take your word for it? You have Mr. Chen's video. You have the text messages. You have 17 complaints against Thompson. You have the dashcam footage showing he lied about the turn signal. My testimony just connects the dots. Walsh asked more questions, trying to break Rodriguez down, but the young officer held firm. He admitted his own failures. He accepted responsibility for his silence. But he didn't back down from his testimony about Thompson. When Walsh finally gave up, Rodriguez stepped down. As he walked past Thompson, the older officer glared at him with pure hatred. Rodriguez didn't look away. During the lunch recess, Marcus found Rodriguez in the hallway. That took courage, Marcus said. Rodriguez shook his head. Courage would have been speaking up 2 years ago. This is just me trying to sleep at night. What will you do now? I don't know. I'll probably be fired. Maybe I'll find another career. But at least I'll be able to look my kids in the eye and tell them I did the right thing, even when it was hard. Marcus shook his hand. If you need a job reference, call me. Rodriguez smiled sadly. Something tells me a recommendation from a civil rights lawyer won't help me get another police job. Maybe not. But it might help you get a job working for people who value honesty. After lunch, James called their final witnesses. People Thompson had stopped or arrested. A teacher who had been pulled over 6 times in 1 year. All in Thompson's district. all for minor or made-up violations. A construction worker who had been beaten during an arrest for disorderly conduct, even though witnesses said he was calm. A college student who had been detained for 2 hours because Thompson claimed her car smelled like drugs, even though no drugs were found. Each story was different. Each story was the same. Thompson saw people of color as criminals. He treated them with contempt. He lied to justify his actions. By the end of the day, the jury looked exhausted. They had heard hours of testimony about abuse, racism, and a system that protected bad officers. As people left the courtroom, Marcus noticed someone watching from the back row. Another officer in uniform. The officer met Marcus's eyes for a moment, then looked away quickly. Marcus wondered how many other officers were watching this trial. How many were cheering for Thompson? How many were secretly hoping he would be held accountable? How many were like Rodriguez, wanting to speak up but too scared of the consequences? That evening, Marcus sat in his apartment with a glass of wine. He turned on the news. The trial was the lead story. A Chicago police officer testified against one of his own today, the news anchor said. Officer Carlos Rodriguez told the court he has witnessed Officer Bradley Thompson engage in racist policing and abuse of power for 2 years. This rare testimony from within the police department has shocked the city. The screen showed footage of Rodriguez leaving the courthouse. Reporters shouted questions at him. He kept walking without answering. Then the screen showed Thompson leaving with his lawyers. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Racist cop." Thompson's lawyers rushed him into a car. Marcus turned off the TV. He thought about tomorrow. Closing arguments. Then the jury would deliberate. 12 people would decide whether Thompson had violated Danny Rodriguez's civil rights. They would decide whether the evidence was enough to prove racial bias. Marcus had done everything he could. He had testified honestly. His team had presented overwhelming evidence. Rodriguez had confirmed everything they alleged. But would it be enough? Marcus knew that juries sometimes sided with police officers even when the evidence was against them. People wanted to believe that cops were the good guys. Admitting that some cops were racist, violent, or corrupt was hard. He thought about Thompson's face in the courtroom. The anger, the hatred, the complete lack of remorse. Men like Thompson didn't see themselves as villains. They saw themselves as warriors keeping chaos at bay. They saw people like Marcus and Danny Rodriguez as threats to be controlled, not citizens to be protected. Changing that mindset would take more than one trial. It would take a complete cultural shift in how police departments operated. But maybe this trial could be a start. Marcus finished his wine and went to bed. Tomorrow would decide whether 2 years of work had been worth it. Tomorrow would show whether the system could hold one of its own accountable. Tomorrow, justice would either win or lose, and Marcus would be there to see which one it was. The final day of trial began with closing arguments. The courtroom was packed again. News crews filled the hallway. This case had become national news. People across the country were watching to see if a police officer would finally face consequences for racist behavior. Walsh went first for the defense. He stood before the jury in an expensive suit, his voice calm and reassuring. "Ladies and gentlemen, this case is not about racism. It's about a police officer doing a difficult job in a difficult time. Officer Thompson has served this city for 19 years. He has put his life on the line countless times to keep you safe. He has awards and commendations. He has saved lives." Walsh pointed at Thompson, who sat with his hands folded, looking humble. "The plaintiffs want you to believe that Officer Thompson is some kind of monster, but the evidence doesn't support that. Yes, he has complaints in his file. Every officer who works in a high-crime area has complaints. That's the nature of police work. You can't arrest criminals without making some people angry." Walsh paced in front of the jury. "They showed you text messages. They showed you social media posts. But sharing a meme doesn't make you racist. Having a dark sense of humor doesn't make you a bad cop. These are human beings doing a stressful job, and sometimes they blow off steam in ways that might seem offensive to outsiders." Marcus clenched his jaw. Walsh was good. He was taking terrible evidence and trying to normalize it. Officer Rodriguez testified against Officer Thompson. But think about his motivation. He admitted his career is over. He admitted he participated in the same group chats he now condemns. He's trying to save himself by destroying someone else. That's not heroism. That's self-preservation. Walsh moved closer to the jury box. And Mr. Chen, yes, he's a lawyer. Yes, he's articulate and educated. But he also makes his living by suing police departments. He has a financial interest in portraying officers as racist. He went looking for a confrontation that night. He recorded the stop. He refused reasonable requests. He provoked a situation so he could use it in court. Several jury members frowned at that. Marcus hoped they saw through it. The truth is simple, Walsh concluded. Officer Thompson stopped a vehicle for a traffic violation. The driver was uncooperative. Officer Thompson called for backup and issued a citation. No one was hurt. No one was arrested. This was a routine traffic stop that's been blown completely out of proportion by people with an agenda against the police. Walsh returned to his seat. Thompson nodded at him like he had just won the case. Judge Okafor looked at Marcus's table. Mr. Mitchell? James stood up. He didn't approach the jury right away. He just stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle. 19 years, James finally said. That's how long Officer Thompson has been a police officer. 19 years of stops like the one Mr. Chen experienced. 19 years of complaints that were ignored. 19 years of abuse that the system protected. James walked to a board where they had posted Thompson's text messages. Defense counsel wants you to believe these are just jokes. Just stress relief. But these aren't jokes. This is who Officer Thompson really is when he thinks no one is watching. James read some of the messages aloud. The racial slurs, the violent comments, the contempt for the communities Thompson was supposed to serve. These messages don't show stress relief. They show hatred. They show contempt. They show a man who sees black and brown people as less than human. James turned to the jury. Defense counsel said Mr. Chen provoked this situation. Let's be clear about what really happened. Mr. Chen used his turn signal. The dashcam proves it. Officer Thompson lied about the reason for the stop. Why? Because he saw a black man in an expensive car and assumed it must be stolen. He assumed Mr. Chen didn't belong in that neighborhood. James played parts of the video again. Watch this. Mr. Chen is calm, respectful. He knows his rights and he exercises them politely. And Officer Thompson gets angrier and angrier. Why? Because in Officer Thompson's world, black people aren't supposed to know their rights. They're supposed to be submissive and obedient. Several jury members nodded slightly. Defense counsel wants you to dismiss Officer Rodriguez's testimony, but Officer Rodriguez didn't have to come forward. He could have stayed quiet, kept his job, protected his career. Instead, he risked everything to tell you the truth. He admitted his own guilt in staying silent. He accepted responsibility. That's not self-preservation. That's courage. James walked back to the board with Thompson's awards. These medals are supposed to mean something. They're supposed to represent service and honor. But what good are medals on the chest of a man with hate in his heart? He turned back to the jury. This case is about more than Officer Thompson. It's about a system that has failed. 17 complaints. 17 times people said this man abused his authority. 17 times the system found merit in those complaints. And 17 times nothing happened. No real discipline. No consequences. Just warnings and notes in a file that everyone ignored. James's voice got stronger. Danny Rodriguez called for help during a mental health crisis. His family thought the police would help him. Instead, Officer Thompson beat him so badly he ended up in the hospital. That's what happens when racist officers are allowed to operate without accountability. People get hurt, James pointed at Thompson. Defense counsel said Mr. Chen makes his living suing police departments. That's true. And do you know why lawyers like Mr. Chen exist? Because officers like Thompson abuse their power. If police treated everyone fairly, if they followed the law, if they respected civil rights lawyers would have nothing to do. The courtroom was completely silent. This trial is your chance to say enough. Enough protecting bad officers. Enough ignoring complaints. Enough pretending that racism doesn't exist in policing. Officer Thompson violated Mr. Chen's rights. He violated Danny Rodriguez's rights. He has violated the rights of countless others who were too scared or too poor or too powerless to fight back. James looked each jury member in the eye. You have seen the evidence. You have heard the testimony. You know the truth. Now you have the power to hold Officer Thompson accountable. Use it, James sat down. The courtroom remained silent for several seconds. Judge Okafor looked at the jury. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard all the evidence. You have heard the arguments. Now it's time for you to deliberate. You must decide whether Officer Thompson violated the civil rights of Marcus Chen and Danny Rodriguez through unlawful detention, excessive force, and discriminatory policing. She read the jury instructions, explaining the law and the burden of proof. Then the jury filed out to begin deliberations. Marcus sat back in his chair. Now all they could do was wait. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. Marcus, Minji, and James sat in a small room near the courtroom. They didn't talk much. There was nothing left to say. Danny's parents waited in the hallway. Other families of Thompson's victims had shown up to support them. Officer Rodriguez sat alone in a corner, his career over but his conscience clear. At 4 p.m, word came that the jury had reached a verdict. Everyone rushed back to the courtroom. Marcus's heart pounded as the jury filed back in. He tried to read their faces, but they all looked straight ahead. Judge Okafor entered and took her seat. Has the jury reached a verdict? The jury foreman stood. He was an older black man, a retired teacher. Yes, Your Honor, we have. What is your verdict? In the case of Rodriguez versus Thompson, we find in favor of the plaintiff. We find that Officer Bradley Thompson violated the civil rights of both Marcus Chen and Danny Rodriguez through unlawful detention, excessive force, and racially discriminatory policing. The courtroom erupted. People cheered. Danny's mother sobbed with relief. Marcus felt tears in his own eyes. Judge Okafor banged her gavel but didn't try too hard to restore order. She let people have their moment. When things finally quieted down, Judge Okafor looked at the foreman. Does the jury award damages? Yes, Your Honor. We award $200,000 to Marcus Chen for the violation of his civil rights. We award $1.2 million to Danny Rodriguez for the violation of his civil rights and for the physical and emotional harm he suffered. More cheers. Thompson sat frozen at the defense table, his face white. Judge Okafor looked at Thompson. Officer Thompson, this jury has found that you violated the constitutional rights of 2 citizens while acting under color of law. I am recommending that the district attorney investigate you for criminal civil rights violations. I am also recommending that the police department conduct a comprehensive review of all officers you have supervised or trained. She pulled out a document. I have written a detailed opinion in this case. It will be published and entered into the public record. In it, I document the systematic failures of the police department's accountability systems. I describe how complaint after complaint was ignored or minimized. I explain how this institutional failure enabled Officer Thompson to continue his pattern of abuse for years. Thompson's lawyers tried to speak, but Judge Okafor held up her hand. I want to say something to the police officers in this courtroom, and to any who might read my opinion. The vast majority of police officers are good people trying to do a hard job. But when you protect bad officers, when you stay silent about misconduct, when you value loyalty over justice, you make it worse for everyone. You make communities trust police less. You make good officers' jobs harder, and you betray everything the badge is supposed to represent. She looked at Rodriguez. Officer Rodriguez, you showed real courage by testifying. You will face consequences for that courage, but I want you to know that history will judge you more kindly than those who stayed silent. Judge Okafor adjourned the court. As she left, people swarmed around Marcus and his team. Reporters shouted questions. Danny's family hugged them. Strangers thanked them for fighting. Marcus saw Thompson leaving through a side door with his lawyers. The officer looked old suddenly, defeated. For the first time since Marcus had met him, Thompson looked scared. Officer Rodriguez approached Marcus. Thank you for letting me testify, he said. Thank you for having the courage to come forward, Marcus replied. What will you do now? Minji asked Rodriguez. I don't know. Maybe find a new career. Maybe go back to school. But I'll figure it out. You helped get justice today, Marcus said. That matters, Rodriguez nodded. Yeah, it does. Over the next few days, the trial became national news. Videos of Marcus's testimony went viral. Clips of Rodriguez's testimony were shared millions of times. The police union issued a statement defending Thompson, but public opinion was against them. The district attorney announced a criminal investigation. Within a week, Thompson was charged with civil rights violations, falsifying police reports, and obstruction of justice. He was suspended without pay pending trial. More victims came forward. 17 new complaints were filed against Thompson, from people who had been too scared to speak up before. The FBI opened an investigation into the entire police district. 6 officers in Thompson's unit were suspended pending review. The department implemented new policies, mandatory body cameras, independent oversight of complaints, and anonymous reporting systems for officers who witnessed misconduct. 3 months later, Marcus sat in a community meeting. 200 people packed the room. They were there to discuss police reform in Chicago. A young man stood up to speak. He was maybe 19, wearing a hoodie and jeans. "I got stopped by Thompson 2 years ago," he said, his voice shaking. "He searched my car for no reason. He called me a thug. He made me sit on the curb for an hour while people drove past staring at me. I felt humiliated, powerless." The young man looked at Marcus. "I didn't report it because I thought nobody would care. I thought nothing would happen. But you made something happen. You showed that standing up to injustice actually matters. Thank you." Marcus felt a lump in his throat. This was why he had become a lawyer. Not for the money or the recognition, but for moments like this. For making a difference in real people's lives. 6 months after the trial, Thompson pleaded guilty to avoid a longer sentence. He received 3 years in prison and a lifetime ban from law enforcement. The police union stopped defending him once evidence of his criminal activity became overwhelming. Officer Rodriguez had been fired from the police department, but he found work as a community liaison, helping build trust between police and neighborhoods. He said he was happier than he had been in years. Danny Rodriguez was in therapy and slowly recovering from his trauma. The settlement money helped his family pay for his treatment and give him a fresh start. Marcus continued his work fighting police misconduct. The Thompson case made him somewhat famous, but more importantly, it made other victims believe they could get justice. His office received dozens of new complaints every week. One evening, Marcus drove home from work. He passed the spot where Thompson had stopped him. He paused there for a moment, remembering that night. The fear, the anger, the determination to turn a terrible experience into something meaningful. He had done that. One traffic stop had become a catalyst for change. Not enough change. Not nearly enough. The system was still broken in so many ways. But it was a start. Marcus's phone rang. It was Minji. "We have a new case," she said. Another pattern and practice complaint. 5 officers in the South District. Similar behavior to Thompson. "Send me the files," Marcus said. "I'll look at them tonight. You sure?" "You've been working too much. Take a night off." Marcus smiled. "There are people out there who need help. People who think they have no voice. We can be that voice." "Okay," Minji said. "But Marcus, what you did with the Thompson case, that's going to save lives. You know that, right?" Marcus thought about the young man at the community meeting. About Rodriguez finding the courage to testify. About all the future victims who would be spared because Thompson was off the streets. "I hope so," he said quietly. "I really hope so." He drove home through the city he loved. A city with problems, yes. A city with injustice and inequality and systems that protected the powerful. But also a city with people fighting for change. People refusing to stay silent. People believing that justice was possible, even when it seemed impossible. Marcus thought about his father's advice from years ago. Stay calm, keep your hands visible. Be polite. That advice had kept him safe that night with Thompson. But it had also kept him from being just another complaint that got ignored. It had given him evidence. It had given him power. And he had used that power not just for himself but for everyone who came after him. That was what justice looked like. Not perfect, not complete, but real, and worth fighting for. Marcus Chen pulled into his driveway and went inside his house. Tomorrow he would start on the new case. Tomorrow he would fight for more victims. Tomorrow he would continue the work. But tonight, for just a few hours, he would rest. He would remember that sometimes the system could be changed. That sometimes courage and evidence and persistence could win. That sometimes, despite everything, justice could prevail, and that was enough to keep going.